Alright, gonna play some 3-minute on chess.com. Alright, let's play the Rubinstein French. Been making videos on it. I do enjoy it. Gonna play knight f6, try to trade one pair of knights because we only have one f6 for our knights, and then look for a quick c5 break. Always be c5ing. Castles, castles, they can delay. I now want to get my c8 bishop out, so b6 is the standard method, followed by bishop b7. Bishop g5 is pretty normal for white here. And now rook a d1, I've seen a lot. In which case I will weirdly break the pin on the f6 knight by playing queen c7. It is not such a big deal if they wreck my kingside pawns. It looks worse than it is, and black should be able to stabilize the kingside with proper play. So I have to be careful, and I've definitely blown these positions. If they do not take, I'll play knight d5, and my knight can activate. Bishop e4 is the main move. I can play rook fd8. I also like h6, because the way to stabilize the kingside is h6, king g7, and f5, and this is not a moment when white can stop me starting to set up that construction. So I'm going to start with h6. Next turn, I will take on e4, play f5, and play king g7, and I will have my intended kingside setup, where I don't think white has any entry squares. They can play queen h4, I play king g7, I cover everything. I will then contest the d-file. I like my bishop. I think I'm pretty close to equal here. Maybe clearly equal. I may play bishop e7 at some point. I do not think white particularly wants to trade queens. Generally, the cue to trade queens is if your king position is worse, or if the material imbalance means that it is favorable to get queens off for simplicity. I don't think either of those things are the case here for white. Ah, they're really going for it. But this should allow queen f4, where I hit the knight and the pawn is not quite pinned to the queen, but if the knight moves, I can just take the pawn. And now I should have a very nice position. Another thing is, playing the Rubinstein French, I got to play the opening very quickly because I am familiar with it. What order do I want to take things in? Probably queen takes g4. Then I'm going to play so he's going to take the queen, they're going to take the queen. Oh, they did this first. Okay. I don't think this is as good for them, because now I have a turn to contest the d-file. I think they should have taken my queen, I take knight e5, they hit g4, and when I play something like h5, they have time to put a piece on the d-file, or bring their rook down the d-file to say rook d7. I'm going to play bishop e7. I was a little worried about knight c6, but I can take on d1, and then play bishop f6, and my bishop covers every useful square their knight might be headed. I'm going to play a6. Maybe I should have played a5, but just intending b5, because I think that pawn, sometimes I want to play b4 to follow. I have this 4-on-2 on the king side. It's a little hard to push. All right, they want to play knight b4 next. And I would like to get my pawns moving. So maybe I'm going to start by bringing the king up. I want to push e5, e4 soon. Okay, that was a nice move of them, preventing that. I'm now going to play h4 and trade off one of their pawns, and at some point I'll need to make the e5 push. Okay, so I was going to try to play a5, a4, a3. I lose a pawn, but if they play a3 themselves, maybe my bishop can get behind their pawns on the dark squares. And if they don't, and I play a3, I can often support that bishop and start breaking up their pawns a bit. Maybe I should have played bishop e1 first. Not sure this was right. If they play rook b7, I have to worry about getting mated, and I cannot play rook f8, so I think maybe they should have done that. Now I can start to drive the knight away. I'm going to play king e7. I think my king is going to be needed in the defense of their pawns. Rook d2 check, I can take a2, and now my a pawn should be very good. I'm going to play rook b2, keep pressuring their pawns. If they play c6, I will bring my king over. I can now play rook b4. And if they go into a 2-pawn down endgame, this is just hopeless for them. But they can't even take the pawn now. So I think this was a very nice win in the Rubinstein French, where I played h6, and then I played f5 and king g7, and my king side was safe. White got somewhat desperate to blast it open and played g4. And then I had a nice position. So I'm going to play the advance. I like to take on c5. Alright, so I still don't know what to do here because I like to play for g4 lines. So what I'm going to try to do is quickly pressure their center because h5 looks somewhat extraneous if I'm playing, very centrally driven. I don't think queen b3 does a lot, but I am curious what they do if I play bishop e2. Alright, I'm going to play h3. I think the h3 lever is probably useful for them at some point, so I'm just going to prevent it. Okay, I guess I have to take that. Maybe my knight comes to e4 someday. Looks like they might have some dark square holes. It might be in my best interest to trade my dark squared bishop for their dark squared bishop, because without their dark squared bishop, they lose their only piece really dedicated to defending the types of squares they're weak on. And then I think my knight might have nice access to those squares, eventually. So I am going to try to trade these bishops. And then I want to play knight e4, but their bishop prevents it. So I'm going to try to trade this pair of bishops too, to play knight e4, aiming for knight d6. I like my other knight on f3. It pressures h4, which makes it a little hard for the black pieces to move around the board. I am trying to play this in a strategically clever fashion, but it is perfectly possible that this will not have proven correct. They might be able to think about g5 at some point. I can play knight e4. They don't have knight e5 yet because my knight covers it. I might play queen b3 next, hit b7. Maybe d5. Can I get away with that? My queen moves into the line of fire, but I don't see any useful discoveries. Maybe they just move the knight, but then I have d6, knight e5, rook d5, I have queen c3, and I keep everything defended. Ooh, it's a little risky, but I think I can get away with it. Now when I can't, we can all have a good laugh about it. Alright, if that's all they've got, then I'm not too concerned here. I'm going to play knight d6. Takes. Their h4 pawn's a little weak, so even if I end up losing the d pawn, I suspect I'm not going to be down a pawn for long. Of course, they threaten to take the queen. All right, so I can take on b7. They take on b2. They take on d6 there. So I should probably solidify the pawn. Yeah, if their queen takes on b2, probably rook b1, though I can consider knight takes h4 as well, rook a b1. That gives them a2, but I like my rook coming into b7. They might have annoying things like knight f6 there. I'm not entirely convinced by my play. Now their knight has nowhere it can go that hits my queen, so I think I have time to play, say, rook d2, bring the other rook to d1, and then maybe queen h5 next, because I think it's hard for them to defend h4. They're going to spend a while trying to round up d6. Maybe this is favorable for me. I should try to keep d6 if possible. I should make it as much of a thorn in their side as I can. Now I get a pawn and it's not obvious they can immediately win d6. So knight f3 is a little bit of a problem, and they're threatening knight c4. So I'm going to cover that. They might play c4. It seems pretty reasonable. Alright, they didn't, so I'm going to take this opportunity to drive their knight away. Then come back to f3. Maybe knight g5 coming? Right, I can keep that pawn defended. Still might have knight g5 coming. Alright, they are calling me a cheater, which is, people often do that, especially when they're not playing very well. Should probably take this opportunity to play knight e5. Now they're swearing at me. This is very polite. They've reported me. I'm very scared. Okay. I'm going to play d7. Maybe think about a3 and then knight c6. Yeah, let's drive away the knight and then play knight c6. Okay. They're going to give up the rook, and I guess we'll just try to defend everything. Okay, that was a reasonable move. Play king f2. Maybe rook c1 next. Then they have knight b3. So let's start pushing my outside pawns. Knight b3, maybe I just have rook b1 though. So maybe double. Not making progress here though. Now it's hard for them to defend the c-pawn. I don't think they should have done that. I also don't think they should have called me a cheater. And their language was bad too. Unsurprisingly, perhaps. Let's try to trade a pair of rooks. Ah, they've now told me to die. This is very polite. I'm going to take this because I am low on time. Alright, I can play rook e4 and save the pawn. I'd like to follow with rook e5. Alright, let's make a check and come to c4. My king means I couldn't play rook c5 without allowing rook d4. Right, they're going to try to clock me because they think they're punishing a cheater. Little do they know, yeah, this was on stream. So just so you can see, ooh, that's not what I wanted. The delight of this opponent. Shall we avoid the swear word? Let's avoid the swear word. Nope, that's the wrong thing to move. Ooh, we did not avoid the swear. Alright, well, anyways, very impolite opponent. I am going to say they were a poor sport and block them. But I'm kind of pleased I got away with a draw there. If we go back, I didn't really handle this exchange up position very well. I think knight d4 was a good move, and I tried to undermine, but then I should be looking to find a target, and I couldn't find one. Maybe e6 in this moment, because if they can't take back knight because they're pinned, and now I kind of have a target. But they can probably just defend everything. So I'm not sure I do. Also, I'm blundering knight f3. So okay, I don't really understand. Maybe I have to handle it slowly and I didn't have the time to do it. But it was trickier to win this exchange up position than I thought it would be. Yeah, I like how I handled the middle game though. I think that was reasonable. Alright, we are 1.5 out of 2 and have been called a cheater for the first time on stream, which I think is a important, life experience for everyone. Alright, I'm going to play knight f3. And go for this sort of e3 poison-inspired setup. Let's play d4. I'm going to go for a b3 line instead of a knight c3 line. Or I'm going to be prevented. Maybe knight d2. I'd like to play a3 and b4 myself. Okay. Now I think they have to take on d2, because bishop a5, dc5, and I threaten b4. So I think I've forced, maybe not a large concession, but I thought they couldn't do this. Maybe they're trying to take on c4, but I can just take back on c4. So I think they've misplayed this opening. I think after b4, I'll have a nice advantage. So maybe they want to meet b4 with an immediate a5. So I'm going to get castled before worrying about that. But yeah, maybe I allowed a5 just anyway, and now I don't have b4. In the other line, I'd have bishop b2 here. So I may have just failed to hold on to what should have been a clean extra pawn. Ooh. Don't like that. Thinking about knight b3. I'm not sure why it appeals to me. But it does defend c5. And I like coming to d4 and then b5. I think they don't have very good control of that square. So they're threatening a4, driving my knight away. So I'm going to play a4 myself, and I'm intending knight fd4 to b5, because that seems like a weak square to me. So I'm expecting, if knight d7, now I also have c6. So I think my castles was a mistake. Alright, this is the other way to do it. I still have c6 if I wanted. But I think this was a good way to handle it after. I'm going to try to keep the pawn. But they have queen d6 here. If they have bc6, knight c6, then they don't have queen d6. But queen d6 immediately, they can probably play. Yeah, looks like it. Alright, they didn't go for it. So I can take on b7. I can also play knight b5 and get the two bishops. If I take on b7, they have very good bishops, but I am up a pawn. And I like being up a pawn. I'm going to go for this. Maybe bishop d2. So, okay, if knight a5, they threaten mate on e5, I think I can play g3. So I'm going to keep taking things. No fear. Ooh. Okay. Now they don't have knight g4. Might they play something like h5 and just play this slowly? That would be... I feel optimistic. I can play g3 or king g1. I think I want g3. I think I need space for my king. Maybe bishop c3. Try to trade on f6. If they play knight g4, I have queen takes g4. And if I can get rid of the f6 knight, then they lose a key attacking piece. So I think they just blundered. They can play queen takes c3, but they're down a piece. I don't have queen g7 because their queen covers it. So I'm going to take back, I think knight takes, so I can hit e4. And knight g5 to just push the bishop out, because it's an annoying bishop. Maybe f3, just keep trying to push them back. Alright, that hits the knight. Alright, we can retreat that, that's fine. Maybe come to d4, more winning more time. Maybe rook. Let's just keep everything. b3. I'm gonna have to play fast. I'm gonna try to keep the knight as a little annoyance in their position. Well, I haven't been doing well up in exchange today, so I'm gonna play king g1, king g2, bishop h3 was a problem. Knight e5 comes next for me. They didn't prevent it. Bishop, ooh, this is a tough position for them. Yeah, they play bishop e6. But I should be winning. Probably without significant trouble. I did just hang knight e3. That was quite terrible. But I think even still, I'm going to win e6. The king's loose. My bishop and knight are very strong. Play bishop e6. I don't know where they should go. I'm going to come back to c4. Okay, check. I'm going to take here, take here. Right. How many checks do they have? No one ever died from a single check, but this is a lot of checks. I have 4 seconds, and I'm not going to be able to trade off their rook. So they are going to clock me. Yeah. Well. I think I played a nice game. I'm pretty pleased with that one. I didn't play it fast enough, but but I handled this attack well, with bishop c3, knowing I had queen takes g4. And then I did not convert. Alright, 1.5 out of 3. We've had 3 winning positions. So perhaps this should be worrisome about my technique. Per usual, I have bribechess.com to give me many whites. I don't understand how that happens. Alright, with their queen off d5, I'm going to apply a little more pressure to it. It's conceivable the person had a point when they called me a cheater. They just didn't understand it was about getting a million extra whites. Looking to play c4 again. Maybe bishop a3, stop them castling, then rook c1 and c4. What I really want is white's center pawns to be broken up, because they have this really strong plan of knight e4 really well supported by the pawns. And I just want to make that difficult for them. I get the feeling I trap their queen if they take on a2, with rook a1, queen b2, something, but I'm not sure exactly what. I guess we'll get another tempo on their queen and then play c4. Still not scared of them taking on a2 ever. Ooh, my bishop gonna run low on squares. I guess if they play knight e4, I should probably take it and play knight e5. They still can't castle, and if I have taken it and played knight e5, I'll be threatening queen h5 check. Ah, they're gonna go for the pawn. This is very brave. So one thing I can do is rook a1, queen b2, bishop b8, rook a7. That seems seems like I should have more here than that. Rook a1, queen b2, bishop a3, queen c3, and I'm not sure how I get them. So maybe I'll just keep putting my pieces on improved squares. So I don't need immediate compensation for the pawn. I have rook a1 sometime. You have to check it every move too. Maybe I'm going to play... Alright, you see, now I can take and play queen h5. It was hard for black to find a move there, I think. And this position, I'm just winning lots of material and possibly checkmating them too. Or at least putting their king in a lot of trouble. Yeah. So they ran away because if they take, when I take back, their king can't run to the queen side. But now I'm just up so much material, and it's not like the attack's over. If they take queen, I will trade queens, just for simplicity's sake. But they can't play king b7 because d7 hangs. I'm threatening knight c6. They probably have to play something like queen a4 here. Then I'm going to play queen h7 or queen f7 and hit d7. And there's no way black can defend everything. So they decided to sidestep. What's the most precise? So I can take on c6. If I throw in a check, I'm curious where they go. This might have helped them. This might have been not precise, but I wanted to take c6 with check. If they go to d7, then I had a rook c7, and if king d6, I had queen e7 mate. So they ran the other way. I'm going to check. Then I think I'm going to come to e7, just so if they move the a8 rook, I can take on a7, to just make them so tied down. If the queen moves, I have rook a1. Yeah, so they're going to make a move over there. I'm just going to waste a move. I think their pieces can barely move, and every move I force them to make, they are more likely to make an irrevocable error. Okay, I'm going to poke the queen again. Just make them make a move. Probably not optimal technique, but it is quite annoying for a player trying to defend this kind of position. Maybe queen d7 next. Maybe rook c1. My bishop's a little loose. Let's just get the bishop safer. Threaten queen d7. I admit I have not made progress. I'm just trying to give them opportunities to screw up. If they take, I have queen c6 checkmate. And if they do not take, can take myself. And this is a mating net if they take. They didn't. I have rook a7. I think that's good enough. I have to go fast. And with my rook joining the attack. Yeah, they're running that way. Interesting. Alright, we threaten queen f1 and bishop a5. Because their king doesn't have squares. If their queen moves, I had rook c3. This is checkmating. Alright, got there eventually. Showed technique in one game, sort of. Perhaps shaky technique, but I think the up a piece kind of sit there and force them to make move strategy when you have that big an attack, but I didn't see a clear breakthrough, can be a reasonable idea. So alright, we're on 2.5 out of 4. I'm going to stick with the Rubinstein French. I really enjoyed our first game in it. Yeah, you get it a lot. Knight d7, knight f6. We traded off that knight. Now I can play the c5 break. Last time they took. This time they didn't take. Alright. I'm not familiar with this move, but knight d5 looks like a nice way to inconvenience the bishop. That's often a response to bishop e3. If they take on c5, I will take on e3 and then c5. I think I can still look that way. They will win a full tempo now if they take on c5, but I don't think they can do anything with it. At this point, perhaps I should take, but I don't really think there's a need. I don't think white can keep the pawn if they go for it. Alright, now we have to take. Maybe I could play b6, just get my bishop in the game the normal way. They don't really have an attack on the king side. There's no bishop h7, there's no knight g5. Alright, they're now threatening dc5 and bishop h7, so I'm going to just sidestep. I still have d5 under control. I'm getting a little more worried about king safety, but I think I should have another move I can make. So if bishop h7, king h7, queen h5, king g8, they do crash through on f7. So okay, I'm going to play g6. Preventative measures. I was a bit scared. They're looking to come in on h6 or f6. I'm not too worried about that. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. I'm going to play king g7. Because they don't have queen f3. They could play queen f2 to defend it. That's true. Maybe then I'd play queen d8, and then I'm hitting f6 and d4. Yeah, so I think I'll try that. And when the knight moves, d4 is of course defended. Maybe bishop h4, because if they play g3, then they have permanently weakened the long diagonal where I have a very nice bishop. If they play dc5 at some point, I'm just going to move my queen out of the way. I don't want to allow discoveries, and I'm willing to gambit a pawn here. They're coming in a different way. Okay, well, I kind of like queen d6, because if queen h6, king g8, and they have to worry about queen takes g3. So they're going to have to give a tempo back somewhere. And that might give me time to secure my king. And I'm also might be threatening to take on d4 sometimes. I hope they trade, though. I'm scared of queen h6. I think that was a clever idea from them. But I would like to see queen takes d6. Alright. Now maybe f6. Force some trades. I do feel my king is more vulnerable than theirs. I know I have the long diagonal. I don't see a good way to use it. I can just play hg6 here, I think. Then f5. They can sacrifice a lot of pieces to try to get something, but it seems... No, they can't, because my rook's defending it too. Alright, so we push back that for a... So I'm debating between cd4 and queen c6 or queen c6 immediately. and I think queen c6 immediately. If d5, ed5, cd5, queen d5, bishop f5, I assume my queen has somewhere reasonable to go. I might even play queen g2 if I get really worried there and swap off things. Alright, so they were not enthused by that. Maybe just rook d8. If they play h5, I think I play rook h8, and their pawn is uncomfortable for them to defend. Yeah, and they just resigned. Alright, so that was I think I played really well this session. I'm very pleased with this. Scored 3.5 out of 5, was called a cheater, always a win. And got some interesting games in the Rubinstein French. And I think I handled the early middle games well, though not the kind of late middle games, early end games. Okay.